Have you ever paused and questioned your own thoughts? It's a simple question, but the answer is far more complex than it appears. We like to believe we are rational beings, carefully weighing options and making decisions based on logic and evidence. But what if I told you that most of the time, we're not fully in control? What if our thinking is being subtly directed by invisible mental forces like a puppeteer pulling strings we can't even see? These forces are known as cognitive biases, and they are the silent architects of our reality. These biases aren't flaws in our programming, they are mental shortcuts or heuristics that our brains developed over millennia to help us make quick judgments and navigate a complex world. They work behind the scenes, shaping our perceptions, influencing our beliefs, and guiding our actions, often without our conscious awareness. From the career path you choose to the news you believe, these hidden patterns of thought are constantly at play, making you feel certain when you should be skeptical and cautious when you should be bold. The first step to regaining control isn't to fight these biases, it's to understand them. By shining a light on these mental blind spots, we can learn to recognize when they're steering us astray and start making more deliberate, thoughtful choices. So let's explore 4 of the most powerful and common mental biases that silently guide your thinking, and how you can protect yourself from them. Picture this: a brilliant college dropout builds a tech empire from their garage. A struggling artist is discovered overnight and becomes a global sensation. We hear these stories all the time. They are inspiring, captivating, and they fuel our ambitions. We study their moves, read their biographies, and try to replicate their formula for success. We see the winners, standing on the podium, bathed in the spotlight. But there's a fundamental flaw in this approach. We are only seeing the survivors. For every celebrated entrepreneur, there are thousands who went bankrupt. For every famous artist, there are countless others whose work never left their studio. Their stories are invisible. They don't give TED Talks or write best-selling books about failure. The graveyard of failed startups is silent. This is the essence of survivorship bias, our tendency to focus on the people or things that survived a process while completely overlooking those that did not, precisely because they are not visible. This bias creates a dangerously misleading picture of reality. It makes success seem far more common and straightforward than it actually is. When we only learn from the triumphant, we get a skewed understanding of the odds. We might believe that dropping out of college to start a business is a reliable path to wealth, because we see the examples of Bill Gates or Mark Zuckerberg. We don't see the vast number of dropouts who struggled to find stable work. The danger lies in adopting a flawed blueprint for success. We might overestimate our chances, ignore crucial risks, and fail to prepare for the very real possibility of failure. The lessons from those who didn't make it are often more valuable than the lessons from those who did. They can teach us about common pitfalls, hidden obstacles, and the critical importance of timing, luck, and resilience. Without their stories, we're navigating a minefield with a map that only shows the safe paths taken by a lucky few. So, how do we counter this? We must actively seek out the stories of failure. When you're considering a new venture, don't just ask, what did the successful people do? Instead ask, what did the unsuccessful people do? What went wrong for them? Look for the postmortems, the case studies of businesses that shut down, the artists who never got their break. This isn't about being pessimistic, it's about being realistic. It's about gathering a complete data set. The next time you're inspired by a success story, pause and challenge your perspective. Ask yourself, are you learning only from the visible winners? What about the unseen losers? What crucial information is missing from this picture? By looking for the bullet holes in the planes that didn't come back, you learn where the real vulnerabilities are, and that knowledge is far more powerful than any survivor's tale. Let me ask you something. Would you be happier finding a $100 bill on the street, or more upset losing a $100 bill that was already in your wallet? For most people, the answer is clear. The sting of the loss is far more potent than the joy of the gain. Psychologists have a name for this: loss aversion. It's the principle that the pain of losing something is psychologically about twice as powerful as the pleasure of gaining something of equal value. This isn't just about money. This powerful bias weaves its way into every corner of our lives, often leading to irrational decisions. Think about that pair of old, uncomfortable shoes in your closet. You never wear them, but you can't bring yourself to throw them away. Why? Because getting rid of them feels like a loss. The same logic applies to bigger decisions. It's why people stay in jobs they dislike, or relationships that are no longer fulfilling. The fear of losing the familiar, however imperfect, outweighs the potential gain of something new and better. Loss aversion makes us fundamentally conservative and risk-averse. We're wired to protect what we have, even at the cost of future opportunities. Consider an investor who holds on to a plummeting stock, hoping it will come back. They're not making a rational calculation about the stock's future potential. They're trying to avoid the pain of realizing a loss. Selling the stock would make the loss concrete, and our brain fights desperately to avoid that feeling. This bias exploits our emotional attachment to ownership. Once we possess something, whether it's an object, a job, or an idea, we value it more highly than we did before it was ours. This is called the endowment effect, a close cousin of loss aversion. We overvalue what we have, making it incredibly difficult to part with. This can trap us in a cycle of inertia, preventing us from making necessary changes and embracing growth. We cling to the status quo not because it's good, but because leaving it feels like a painful sacrifice. To overcome the pull of loss aversion, we need to reframe our decisions. Instead of focusing on what you might lose, force yourself to consider what you stand to gain. If you're hesitant to leave a dead-end job, don't dwell on the loss of a steady paycheck. Instead, create a vivid picture of the new skills you could learn, the better work-life balance you could achieve, or the more engaging work you could be doing elsewhere. The new skills you could learn, the better work-life balance you could achieve, the more engaging work you could be doing elsewhere. Shift the focus from what am I giving up, to what could I be moving toward. Before you make a decision driven by the fear of losing something, stop and ask yourself a critical question. Am I holding on just because I don't want to let go? If I didn't already have this job, this investment, this pair of shoes, would I actively choose to acquire it today? By detaching your sense of ownership and evaluating the situation from a neutral standpoint, you can loosen the grip of loss aversion and make a choice based on future potential, not past possession. If you watch the evening news, you might start to believe that shark attacks, plane crashes, and kidnappings are everyday occurrences. The stories are dramatic, emotional, and they get a lot of airtime. As a result, we begin to overestimate the probability of these events happening to us. We might become afraid to swim in the ocean or fly on an airplane, even though, statistically, we are far more likely to be harmed in a car accident on the way to the airport. This is the availability heuristic at work. This mental shortcut dictates that if something can be recalled easily, it must be more important or more frequent than things that are harder to recall. Our brains are lazy. They substitute the easy question, how easily can I think of an example, for the much harder question, how statistically common is this event? Vivid, recent, and emotionally charged information is sticky. It creates a strong impression in our memory, making it readily available for recall. The availability heuristic distorts our perception of risk and reality in profound ways. It's why lottery ticket sales often spike after a big winner is announced in the news. The vivid story of a single winner becomes more available in our minds than the statistical certainty that millions of others lost. In the workplace, a manager might give more weight to a recent success or failure during a performance review, ignoring a whole year of steady work, simply because the recent event is freshest in their memory. This bias is a favorite tool of media and marketing. Sensational headlines and dramatic imagery are designed specifically to be memorable, to become available in your mind. An alarming report about a rare disease can cause widespread panic, while the silent, ongoing killers like heart disease or diabetes receive far less emotional engagement, even though they pose a much greater threat to most people. We don't react to the world as it is, but to the picture of the world that is most easily constructed in our minds. The key to fighting this bias lies in deliberately seeking out data over drama. When you feel a strong emotional reaction to a piece of information, especially from the news, take a step back. Consciously ask yourself if your judgment is being swayed by the vividness of a single story. Go beyond the headlines and look for base rates, statistics, and long-term trends. Instead of relying on memory, rely on records. So, the next time you find yourself worrying about a highly publicized danger, pause and ask, is this event actually common, or just commonly reported? Am I reacting to a powerful story, or to objective evidence? By training yourself to question the availability of information in your mind, you can replace fear-based assumptions with a more accurate, data-driven understanding of the world. It's about distinguishing the signal from the noise. Imagine you believe that a certain political candidate is dishonest. What kind of information do you seek out? You'll likely click on articles, watch videos, and listen to commentators who all share your view. You might even interpret neutral information as evidence of their dishonesty. Meanwhile, you'll instinctively scroll past, dismiss, or discredit any information that suggests the candidate is trustworthy. This isn't about being objective, it's about being right. This is confirmation bias. It's perhaps the most pervasive and insidious of all the cognitive biases. It's our tendency to search for, interpret, favor, and recall information in a way that confirms or supports our pre-existing beliefs or hypotheses. It's a subconscious drive to have our opinions validated. We don't see it as bias, we see it as common sense. The world, as we perceive it, simply seems to line up perfectly with what we already think. Confirmation bias creates an echo chamber around us. The algorithms on social media and search engines are designed to feed this bias. They learn what we like, what we believe, and they show us more of the same, creating a filter bubble where our beliefs are never challenged, only reinforced. This makes it incredibly difficult to consider alternative perspectives, leading to increased polarization and an inability to find common ground with those who think differently. The bias doesn't just affect our political views, it impacts everything. An investor who is bullish on a particular company will seek out good news and positive analyst reports while explaining away any negative signs. A scientist might unintentionally design an experiment that is more likely to confirm their hypothesis. A manager who believes an employee is a low performer will notice every small mistake while overlooking their successes. We see what we expect to see. The antidote to confirmation bias is intellectual humility. It's the active pursuit of disconfirming evidence. You have to be willing to be wrong. Legendary scientist Charles Darwin knew this well. He famously kept a separate notebook where he forced himself to write down any observation or piece of data that seemed to contradict his developing theory of evolution, because he knew his mind would otherwise be inclined to forget it. So, how can you practice this? Actively seek out viewpoints that challenge your own. Follow people on social media you disagree with. Read publications from the other side of the aisle. When you're researching a topic, don't just Google reasons why X is good. Instead, make a genuine effort to search for reasons why X is bad. Ask yourself, am I open to being wrong? Am I looking for truth, or just comfort? It's uncomfortable, but it's the only way to break out of the echo chamber and see the world as it truly is, not just as you wish it to be. Recognizing these four biases, survivorship, loss aversion, availability, and confirmation, might feel a bit discouraging. It can seem like our minds are rigged to mislead us. But it's crucial to understand that these biases are not defects. They are features, not bugs. They are the mental shortcuts that our ancestors developed for survival in a world that demanded fast, intuitive judgments. The problem is that these ancient shortcuts aren't always well suited for the complex, information-rich world we live in today. They helped our ancestors survive, but they can prevent us from thriving. The solution isn't to try and eliminate these biases, which is likely impossible, but to become aware of them. Self-awareness is the flashlight that illuminates these dark corners of our minds. Once you can name a bias, you can spot it in action, in others, and more importantly, in yourself. The goal is to move from being a passive subject of your own thinking to an active, critical observer of it. This awareness creates a crucial space between a mental shortcut and a final decision. A space where you can pause, reflect, and choose a different path. So, before you make your next important decision, take a moment. Ask yourself the hard questions. Am I only seeing success stories and ignoring failures? Am I scared of losing something instead of thinking logically? Am I reacting emotionally to information just because I heard it recently? Am I avoiding facts that challenge what I believe? Knowing your brain's blind spots isn't a weakness, it's a strength. When you learn how your mind works, you gain the power to change it. So the next time you're about to make a big decision, pause and ask yourself, is this really my thought, or is something else thinking for you?